The first ever all-electric Chevrolet pickup truck is of course going to be the Silverado, but this shares essentially nothing in common with the internal combustion powered Silverado. This was designed from the ground up to be an all-electric alternative, and it's been a gradual rollout for the Silverado EV, starting with the more fleet-oriented work truck, but now we have the Silverado EV RST First Edition, and today we're going to be checking it out, seeing some of the details, taking it for a drive, and seeing how it compares to the other all-electric trucks on the market. Let's start with an exterior tour of this RST First Edition. So I have the air suspension currently set in lowest mode, entry, exit, and those are 24-inch wheels. Yeah, the RST First Edition comes on 24-inch wheels. They are absolutely massive. Up front, we have typical sleek EV styling dominated by that light bar that goes across the entire front fascia. This truck here is fully blacked out and has a much more sporty looking front fascia compared to the work truck, which is much more, well, like work looking, right? Here we have the RST badge up front. We have our e-trunk, which we will check out shortly. Those huge 24-inch wheels, man, they are massive. The squared off wheel arches too. And like the other Chevy EV products, they make the E, the 3 blue lines, so that's the electrified version of the Silverado badge. We have the fixed side steps here, and this angled piece reminds you of the Chevy Avalanche, which brings us to the bed, which has a lot of really cool functionality. Press this button here, open the tailgate. Normally, it's 5 feet 11 inches in length, but you can see that flexible midgate back there. If you put that down, you now have 9 feet of total space going into the rear part of the cab. And then if we open up here with the flexible tailgate, we now have 10 feet 10 inches of space. So there's another display showing some of the functionality of this modular midgate tailgate area, but this is pretty cool. Plenty of outlets there, and even that rear glass can come out, which is pretty awesome. We have the side steps to help you get into the bed. Pretty sculpted taillights that have a lot of fancy little design cues in there. Giant charging door back here. Open that up. And again, adjustable height air suspension, only available in crew cab configuration. Tons of space inside. We have a front e-trunk up here. So there's a button. You can press it right there and it will power open on its own. It's really nice because it's lockable. It's sealed away. You can put things up front. And a difference between the e-trunk, the front trunk here on the Silverado EV and something like the Rivian R1T is the Rivian R1T, the front fascia stays. So you have to kind of reach over your front here. This is just open. That piece goes up with the hood, similar to the F-150 Lightning. And another difference between this and like the Cybertruck, for example, another all-electric pickup, is this is a much deeper, larger front trunk. The Cybertruck is kind of skinny and long across the front fascia here. We've got like little cup holders here, 120-volt outlet up front. Pretty practical, and to close it, we just press that same button again, and the trunk will close on its own. One of my favorite parts of electrified vehicles is a front trunk. This Silverado is set up to show the flexibility and functionality of the bed and the midgate. So coming around back, we have various length plywood in the bed with certain key competitors called out, and you can see the midgate is down, and that glass is gone too. If we open up the back doors, the seats are folded down and the plywood starts here. So with this setup, the midgate down, the seats folded down, you have 9 feet of space coming back here. So we could close this tailgate, but it's down kind of as a step to hop in. If you were to close the tailgate and have it open too, you could have up to 10 feet 10 inches. Again, this is a 5'11" bed, but with this flexibility and functionality, it is quite practical. This gray truck is showing another option of the modular functionality. So we have the midgate down, but only partially. This kayak here is going from the back seat all the way here. So when you have the midgate open and the tailgate down here, this gives you 10 feet 10 inches of overall length, but it's a 60-40 split. So the glass is still there. And if we come around back, you can see one of the seats is still folded up. So there's so much different modularity here. The glass is intact, everything here, and it gives you a lot of flexibility and functionality with the bed of the Silverado EV, including the outlets. We've got an e-bike charging right here, little air compressor. Really cool how this is set up. Let's start off with the screens because we have two very, very large digital displays. We have the 11-inch driver information cluster right here, and then we have a 17.7-inch LCD freeform infotainment screen. Freeform just simply means the screen goes out to the outer edge of that shape. It's not just a rectangle in a bezel. Really nice display. It's running the native Google system here, which does mean we do not have Apple CarPlay, but we're running native Google Maps, which works pretty well. It'll show you your state of charge when you're going to arrive at your destination. You can go here to your vehicle drive modes, which we'll get into a little bit more later. Go back home. You have some shortcuts there. Your climate settings stay on the touchscreen, heated, cooled seats, various climate controls, but you also have a physical row of some climate controls down below, and then a very, very spacious center console that's modular, right? So you can slide the cup holders here in the little storage bin forward and back. It's 7 gallons of capacity. It's very, very practical. We have a Silverado first edition badge here. And then we have wireless charger. We've got USB-C ports there for power. Just put my phone down there. You can open this up. Even more storage, so extremely practical here. This can slide forward and back. 7 gallons. That is a lot of space to hide things in your center console. Plenty of cup holders. We got 2 more back here. The Bose sound system. Even more storage. Oh, also, I noticed a little Easter egg. Check that out. It's like a old Chevy truck to an outline of the new one. Apologies for the crumbs. Somebody was eating snacks in this truck earlier. The steering wheel here, we have the Super Cruise display. So we do have hands-free Super Cruise on these first editions. This is like a regen braking paddle, but it's pressure sensitive. So the harder you pull it, the more you slow down. It's really, really cool. I'm a fan of that. It allows for essentially like one hand driving, one finger driving, right? Instead of one pedal driving. Super Cruise button here, heated steering wheel, typical controls, the blacked out badge, and we have a lot of red and blue stitching. See the red, blue stitching accents there? I am quite comfortable back here. I have the driver's seat set to where I'd be while driving. 6'2", 6'3". I have tons of leg room. Headroom is great. It feels wide open and airy. And that's the beauty of a ground-up electrified platform. You can design it to maximize the cargo space and the passenger space here. Obviously with the flexibility with folding the seats and the midgate here for even more practicality back here. With that, let's go hop back in the front seat and go take it for a drive, talk about the powertrain, what it's like, and my initial impressions of the Silverado EV RST. When you get in the Silverado EV, there is no on button. You just hop in with the key, put your foot on the brake, and it turns on. Go ahead and put it into drive. Let's see what drive mode we are in. My mode, let's go to off-road for a second. Got that rear wheel steering, which means turning radius is quite impressive. It's like 42 feet 2 inches. For a large truck, rear wheel steering is absolutely a fantastic feature. Let's go ahead and go back into normal mode. Hit the road and see what this is like. Actually, I'm going to go into my mode, which everything is set to the sporty setting. As a RST First Edition, this makes 754 horsepower and 785 pound-feet of torque when you're in wide open watts mode, which you access by just tapping this little button on the screen, get a little bit of noise, and that enables the max power. All right, time to try wide open watts mode and launch the Silverado. We've lowered the suspension, everything is in sport. You tap this button here on the screen. No need to brake torque it, you just floor it. So ready, set, go. Quick. They say 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. For a large truck like that, definitely felt it. Not quite as over-the-top dramatic as the Hummer EV with the Watts to Freedom, where the whole thing squats. There's a lot more motion and drama, but this thing definitely is still pretty quick. So this is the most powerful Silverado ever made with 754 horsepower. In terms of range, it's also one of the longest range, if not, I think the longest range electric truck on the market right now. The RST is rated at 440 miles and the work truck is rated at 450 miles of total electric range. That's courtesy of a rather large battery pack. It's the same 24 Ultium module battery pack as the GMC Hummer EV Super Truck, which is 200 kilowatt hours. For comparison, the Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck, has a 123 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's before the range extender one is available. And the Rivian R1T with the Max pack, the largest one, is 149 kilowatt hours. So this does have a very substantial all-electric range, but it does have a rather large battery pack capacity at 200 kilowatt hours. It also was able to charge pretty quickly. 350 kilowatt fast charging for the work truck and the RST, which means you can add up to 100 miles in as little as 10 minutes. And then discharge it in wow mode. These 24-inch wheels are crazy. The tire pressure, like the rating, is 61 PSI up front and 68 PSI out back. What? I literally, one of the engineers said that. I was like, are you serious? And opened the door and checked the door card. Yeah, 61 PSI, 68 out back. That's a pretty crazy tire pressure to me. It makes sense with the type of tire and like the load of the truck, the weight and so forth. But man, that is just ridiculous. I really hope nobody hits a massive pothole and pops a tire and gets like rocketed to the moon or something like that. 24-inch wheels are pretty massive. I was noticing when I was looking at a work truck earlier, this might be the vehicle with the largest spread of wheel sizes on a single model. The work truck came on 18-inch wheels, and this is 24-inch wheels. That's a 6-inch spread on just one model, right? I cannot think of anything else that would have a bigger range. Just pretty crazy, and it shows a difference in personality from a work truck and a nearly $100,000 luxury performance street-focused truck. But Chevrolet wanted to make sure that this truck still had functionality for what their owners wanted to use it for. They did a study and they asked owners what were the most common usages of their truck and what was important, and the top 4 were daily driving, towing, off-roading, and cargo capacity, right? So a lot of these trucks, the reality is they are people's daily drivers. They're tremendously practical, they're large, they're spacious, they're comfortable, have a ton of features. People use them for daily driving, and I would say this truck absolutely has a ton of great features as a luxurious EV daily driver. Now the towing part, right, that's still important, and yes, like range will decrease when you're towing. That's just a matter of physics. And there's other people that have been testing towing capacities and towing range and so forth. I'm not going to dig too much into that, but with such a large battery pack and range, this will likely still have very, very good usability while towing, and you have tons of tech features to support that. You have Super Cruise with hands-free and towing capability. You can add all the extra cameras and so forth. So the Silverado EV is still a truck in that way. Now, off-roading, this is definitely not going to be the main focus. There will be a Trail Boss version coming later on, and from the renders that they've revealed, like the styling and functionality, definitely way more off-roading focused than a RST, obviously. And on the road right now, driving this, what is it like? Well, really comfortable, actually. You'd think on 24-inch wheels, you're like, oh my gosh, the ride quality is going to be atrocious, right? Well, we have the adaptive air suspension, which does a pretty good job of smoothing things out. I'm actually in my mode, which is the sporty one. If I go into normal, it definitely calms it down even more. So this thing rides pretty comfortably, even though it doesn't have like big poofy off-road tires like the Hummer does, right? We also have 4-wheel steering. So rear-wheel steering means that it's actually maneuverable, and you can actually get it around parking lots and so forth and things like that. I really like the paddle on the left. It's the variable regen on demand. We do have one pedal driving and access it here on the screen. This is currently set to high. You can do high, normal, or off, and you can actually have it show on the little home shortcut cluster here, turn it on and off. But I'm not a huge fan of one pedal driving. I don't spend all of my time driving EVs. I go in between gas cars and so forth, right? So it takes a little bit to like recalibrate your brain to that, where you have to kind of feather the accelerator. But the pedal on the left on the steering wheel, the little paddle shifter of sorts, right? It allows you to modulate the pressure. I'm gonna turn off. So we're off right now, just coasting along, and I can use my hand. I'm not touching the brake pedal, and you're slowing down, and the harder you pull it, the more you have braking. I believe I first experienced this on the Cadillac Lyriq, and I haven't seen it on any other vehicles. Other EVs have the ability to change the level of regen braking with the pedals. They're like just 1, 2, 3, whatever the settings are. But this one is pressure sensitive, just like on a brake pedal, and I think it's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of that. We have Super Cruise, so any supported map road, you can go hands-free and turn on adaptive cruise control. I wonder if this road is available. Oh yeah, there we go. So we have like 2-lane roads now. When it first came out, it was only on like divided highways, but they've really been working at expanding the total network. You still have to be paying attention, but it is fully hands-free when you're on a supported road, and it'll be watching you. There's a sensor. But GM Super Cruise is one of my favorite of the hands-free driver assistance systems. I think it's the best. I've learned to trust it on freeways and so forth. Obviously, always pay attention. And they're adding, I think the number they said was by 2025, they'll have 750,000 miles of mapped roads, which now does include just 1 lane in either direction. These 2-lane divided roads does not require you to be on an actual freeway or anything of that sort. So this is always nice. In terms of the Silverado EV as a daily driver, your number of tech and creature comforts are very, very plentiful. So I mentioned the heated cooled seats, heated steering wheel. This is obviously an RST first edition, so it's pretty well loaded up. The Super Cruise, we have the heads-up display there. It's a massive display in front of me. It's showing my Super Cruise status, my speed limit, my current speed, navigation information, the time. So a lot of information there. Digital rear view mirror, full panoramic glass roof, tons of space, tons of practicality. We have the adjustable air suspension. What else are like daily livable creature comforts? Nice Bose sound system, a lot of storage cubbies and things all over the place, the big screen, and it's just comfortable, right? It's got independent front and rear suspension, so you don't have some of the traditional truck downfalls, and driving dynamics on the road are pretty good. Do you feel the size and weight and heft? Absolutely. It's not as wide and massive as the Hummer, but like in terms of weight, it is essentially almost the same. It's probably a little bit lighter than the Hummer truck. Ultimately, you have the same 24-module Ultium battery pack, and that is a substantial... Oh, look, somebody's towing. Yeah, there's another Silverado EV doing a boat towing thing. I can go try that later on. But you have the battery pack, and that's like on its own like 3,000 pounds or something. Oh, Super Cruise is disengaging. It warns you, turns red. No road information. You just take over. But you can't get away from that, right? So when the battery pack itself weighs that much as a small car, right, like a Honda Civic or something, the rest of the vehicle will weigh quite a lot. So, but the best thing I can say about that is both this and the Hummer were designed from the ground up knowing that it was going to be a heavier vehicle. So the brakes and everything was tuned to handle that. It wasn't like a gas version was all of a sudden increased in weight to deal with the electrification. I'm going to keep going through this roundabout. Like, yeah, a good amount of body roll. Good amount of instant torque too. Not quite as sudden like the jerk that you get sometimes. It definitely like ramps in. But I would not say it's fast, but I wouldn't say it's slow. It is a perfect amount of power for the weight. Compared to some of the other electric trucks, right? They're all in this power range. You look at the Rivian R1T, Tesla Cybertruck with the Cyberbeast, the tri-motor one that's 800 something horsepower. Yeah, they kind of need that crazy power number because of the mass. They all kind of weigh in the 6,000 to 8,000-ish pound range now. But the result of that is you do get pretty impressive acceleration off the line. They're not the most efficient of EVs. I haven't been driving very nicely on this route so far, so I'm averaging 1.4 miles per kilowatt hour. But yeah, that's still a big, heavy vehicle, so it's not going to be like some crazy hypermiling like a smaller electric car would be. And it's starting to rain a little bit. Turn on the windshield wipers. We've had intermittent rain all day as we're driving the Silverado EVs out and about the Ann Arbor area. But they have very, very different personalities. I'll say the Silverado EV and the F-150 Lightning offer the most conventional feeling as much as you can with such a drastically different powertrain and innovations, though it doesn't really jar in the more extreme direction. The Hummer goes all out and just like over the top everything from size to power to acceleration to off-road capability. The Tesla Cybertruck skews in the, this is just a toy. You cannot approach a Cybertruck in any sort of rational way, right? I just drove on a Cyberbeast last week and I wanted to dislike it, but I drove it and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. The steer-by-wire with the variable ratio is wild. The rear steering, the whole experience driving it, right? The looks and feel, it doesn't rationally compare to this truck or the Rivian or the F-150 Lightning, right? The Lightning in this, I would say, offer a more similar ingredient set where they're trying to at least be familiar to somebody who may have had the internal combustion version of the Silverado or F-150. I think what do I think about the comparison between the two of them? I remember not really liking the Lightning that much. It didn't just wow me. This beats it out in range. There's a lot more tech and so forth, some of the really cool innovations, but again, still feeling much more conventional, just modernized Silverado with a different powertrain versus the Rivian, which leans really heavily into like the outdoor overall overlanding experience. A lot of cool things like the flashlight and the Bluetooth speaker and some of the cool other little innovations, the materials and design and so forth. So they're all coming with very distinctly different personalities, but I think as the F-150 Lightning matures, this does, I think Ram is coming out one soon, those will kind of still converge for the big three, right? They're the volume ones. They aren't coming with a startup mentality to really try to carve out a more specialized niche, so this has to be a broader appeal. In terms of pricing, this RST First Edition is going to be the most expensive. They always launch with like the top tier First Edition model loaded up with all the options and features, so $94,500 before destination. So yes, I know that's very, very expensive once you add on tax. I mean, it's a $100,000 truck, and I do acknowledge that that is quite a lot of money. But if you look at the other options in the segment, that's just how much they cost now. The Rivian R1T option up is a $100,000 vehicle. The Lightning Platinum, $100,000 vehicle. I think the one I drove was like 96 grand or something. The Tesla Cybertruck, they're in this price point. So can you say it's a good value? No, I won't say it's a good value because this is the top tier one and you get diminishing returns. I'm gonna be really interested to see future variants, the Trail Boss. I would love to drive a work truck and see what that's like. That's definitely skewing much more in the other direction. It's got less, like the screens aren't as fancy and it's a much more barren interior because it's intended to be a work truck. But the good things I will say for the Silverado EV overall is the range. This range number is very usable and very, very impressive. We're at about like just over 50% right now, and it's showing 258 miles of range. And I've been driving a bit like an idiot this whole drive loop, right? 1.4 miles per kilowatt hour because I'm having fun with wow mode and just flooring it a bunch. So value, it's hard to say when you have a truck that's $100,000. I know a lot of people comment, well, I would just buy a Silverado ZR2 with the gas V8, or I'm buying a Raptor R for that kind of money, or a TRX. And I don't think Chevy is necessarily trying to convert that directly over, right? This is not a Silverado ZR2 competitor. This is just an alternative option. And if you look at the way they're building out their lineup, you can get the ICE version, the internal combustion engine of the Silverado. You can get the electric one. For some of the crossovers, you can do the same exact thing. They're giving the option as they gradually electrify the portfolio. And I will go back to the part that this is a very, very good daily drivable truck. Like, it's been nice cruising around and it's got a lot of presence. It's cool seeing them on the road when there were like 10 of them in a row, all blacked out with the light bar up front, driving down the freeway, leaving downtown Detroit. And while on giant 24-inch wheels, the air suspension means it's still pretty comfortable. The power is plentiful. It can still tow. It's got tons of practicality and flexibility. So the highlights to me would be the practicality with the midgate and everything back there. It can still tow, very usable range, and a lot of really cool tech. Complaints? 24-inch wheels do seem ridiculous to me, right? They do look cool, but as soon as I heard that tire pressure rating to handle like the load and everything, I was like, what? It doesn't feel over the top like wild like the Hummer truck did. That thing was just ridiculously fun in every single way off-roading. And the interior is nice, but that's really creaky plastic. That is like, and I like brace my hand on here because it is a really big screen to just click between drive modes, right? And you can hear a lot of creaking on this big 17.7-inch screen. Like, there's no hiding that whatsoever. But like the modularity inside, the space, the cargo capacity, the passenger headroom and everything like that back and forth is definitely really, really nice. So positive initial impressions of the Silverado EV RST. What do you guys think? How does it look? Would you cross-shop this with the Rivians? Would you go against the Lightning, obviously? The Tesla is a whole different ballpark. That thing is just a giant toy, right? You can't rationally compare that to anything else. The Cybertruck is a science project gone wild. This feels like a proper OEM engineered, all-electric from the ground up pickup truck. So there we go, first drive of the Silverado EV, where the full name of this one is the 2024 Chevrolet Silverado EV RST First Edition. That is a lot of words. Good first impressions. There'll be future variants coming with the Trail Boss. There'll be a GMC Sierra EV, which I think looks pretty cool based on a similar platform, a little more premium. But what do you guys think? Comment below. How does it stack up against the Rivian, the Tesla Cybertruck, the F-150 Lightning, and so forth? Thanks for watching.